The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Alan Wright took a deep breath and stepped forward. His heart beat fast inside his chest as he walked into the Grand Hall. This room held the future of humanity in its walls. 200 pairs of alien eyes watched him. Some blinked sideways. Others glowed in strange colors. A few weren't eyes at all, but sensing organs that humans had no words for. The chamber itself was enormous, bigger than any building on Earth. Its ceiling rose so high it disappeared into darkness above. "Remember, keep your chin up," whispered Captain Samantha Morris from behind him. As the military advisor to the human team, she walked with perfect posture. Her uniform was spotless, metals shining under the strange blue lights of the alien chamber. Alan nodded slightly. This was his 10th visit to the Council in 3 years, but the aliens still made him nervous. Humans had only discovered faster-than-light travel 5 years ago. Most species here had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. They reached the speaker's platform in the center of the room. Around them, in rising tiers of seats, sat the representatives of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Alan's mind struggled to make sense of their forms. "The human delegation is recognized," announced a mechanical voice that translated for all present. "State your purpose." Alan cleared his throat. "Honorable Council members, Earth thanks you for granting us observer status these past 3 years. Today, we formally request consideration for full membership in the Galactic Council." A low murmur spread through the chamber. Some sounds were like human whispers. Others were clicks, hisses, and electronic tones. High Counselor Zex Talon rose from his seat at the highest tier. He was an impressive sight. 8 feet tall with deep green scales that shimmered like jewels. His species, the Drakmor, had founded the Council 15,000 years ago, when humans were still figuring out farming. "Ambassador Wright," Zex Talon said, his voice deep and powerful even through the translator. "Your species has barely left its home system. The Council typically only grants full membership to civilizations with at least 5 centuries of interstellar presence. What makes Earth worthy of special consideration?" Alan had prepared for this question. "High Counselor, while humanity is young in space, we bring unique perspectives and valuable contributions to the galactic community." Captain Morris stepped forward, "including our military and defense technologies." The chamber went silent for 3 seconds. Then laughter erupted from all sides. It was a strange mix of sounds: hooting, buzzing, bell-like tones, and deep rumbles. Even the normally serious Valerians, a species made of living crystal, vibrated in what their kind considered humor. "Military technology?" asked Counselor Golvek, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. His skin changed colors as he spoke, shifting from blue to purple. "Do you mean your chemical rockets and metal projectiles?" Another wave of laughter swept the chamber. Alan felt his face grow hot with embarrassment, but Captain Morris didn't flinch. "Our weapon systems may appear simple to your advanced eyes," she said calmly, "but they are effective and reliable." "Effective against what?" asked a floating jellyfish-like alien. "Each other. My species abandoned physical weapons before we left our oceans. The Phyrexian Collective has not used solid projectiles in war for 50,000 years," added another counselor. "Such weapons are toys compared to quantum disruptors and gravity lenses." High Counselor Zex Talon raised a clawed hand for silence. The laughter slowly died down. "Ambassador Wright, Captain Morris," he said, his voice softer now, almost kind, "we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm. Your species shows promise, but you must understand, the galaxy is a dangerous place. Threats exist that would destroy your world before you could fire a single one of your primitive missiles. This is why the Council exists, to protect developing worlds like yours." Alan opened his mouth to protest, but Captain Morris touched his arm gently. "We understand, High Counselor," she said. "Perhaps a demonstration would help the Council appreciate Earth's military capabilities." Zextalon's scaled lips curved in what might have been a smile. Very well. The Council will observe your demonstration in 1 month's time. Until then, your observer status remains unchanged. As they left the chamber, Alan whispered to Morris, "They're treating us like children." The captain's eyes were hard as she looked straight ahead. "Let them laugh now. They won't be laughing after the first shot is fired." The demonstration day arrived faster than the human team expected. Admiral Frank Collins joined Ambassador Wright and Captain Morris on the Council observation vessel. The massive ship hovered at the edge of an empty star system that the Council had designated for weapons testing. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Ambassador Wright whispered to Admiral Collins. The older man's face showed deep lines from years of service in Earth's space forces. "We didn't come all this way to be treated like space tourists," Collins replied. His voice was calm but firm. It's time they saw what humans can really do. The observation deck was crowded with Council representatives. Some floated in special tanks filled with strange liquids. Others wore environment suits to survive in the oxygen-rich air that humans breathed. All had come to see the primitive Earth weapons that had been the subject of jokes throughout Council space for weeks. Councillor Golvek approached the human delegation. His 6 eyes blinked in that strange sequence again as his skin shifted to a shade of amused purple. "Admiral Collins," he said through his translator, "I must confess my curiosity. What exactly do you plan to show us today? More of your chemical explosives?" Collins smiled politely. "We've brought one of our standard defense satellites and a small target drone. Nothing fancy." "How quaint," said Councillor Dren, a being with translucent tentacles that waved gently as she moved closer. "My species developed beyond physical weapons during our equivalent of your Stone Age." Captain Morris bit her lip to keep from responding. These aliens had been talking down to humans since first contact. Today that would change. Commander Eric Sutton, Earth's chief weapons developer, activated the display console. A holographic image appeared showing the small, plain-looking satellite positioned about 50,000 miles from the observation ship. "This is our standard defense platform," Sutton explained. "It's a basic model, what we would use to protect a small colony or outpost." The alien observers exchanged amused glances. The satellite looked simple and unimpressive compared to their sleek, advanced vessels. "And what will this platform demonstrate?" asked Ambassador Kalax of the Valerian Collective. The crystalline being's voice chimed like bells through the translator. "A simple targeting and elimination sequence," replied Sutton. "We've deployed a drone target at the edge of the system." He pressed another button, and the holographic display zoomed out to show a small drone about 1 million miles away. It was barely visible as a tiny dot on the vast display. "May I?" High Councillor Zextalon stepped forward, his scaled body gleaming under the observation deck's lights. He tapped a few commands into the console. "Interesting," he said. "Your target is made of standard materials, but it's using a basic shield generator of Phyrexian design." Collins nodded. "The Council kindly provided some shield technology when we joined as observers. We've been studying it. That shield can deflect energy weapons 20 times more powerful than your entire planet's energy production," said Councillor Golvek with a smirk. "What do you plan to hit it with?" Admiral Collins looked at Commander Sutton and nodded. "You may begin the demonstration." Sutton pressed a single button. For several seconds, nothing happened. The Council members began to shift uncomfortably. Some made sounds that the translators interpreted as chuckles. Then the satellite on the display opened several panels on its sides. Small objects, barely visible on the hologram, launched from the openings. "What are those?" asked Councillor Dren, leaning closer to the display. "Kinetic penetrators," explained Captain Morris. "Simple metal rods accelerated to high speed. Pieces of metal." Ambassador Kalax's crystalline body vibrated in amusement against a Phyrexian shield. The Council members laughed openly now. Some even turned away from the display, having lost interest in the demonstration. Then the impossible happened. The target drone exploded in a bright flash of light. When the display cleared, Nothing remained but scattered debris. The laughter stopped instantly. The observation deck fell completely silent. "How?" began High Counselor Zex Talon. For once, the ancient and powerful alien seemed at a loss for words. Admiral Collins smiled. "Sometimes, the simplest solution is the most effective." 2 months after the demonstration, life changed for the human delegation. Counselors who once ignored them now nodded respectfully in the great halls. Some even asked questions about Earth's unusual approach to weapons technology. But full membership in the Council remained elusive. "They're still not taking us seriously," Captain Morris said as she sat with Ambassador Wright in the human embassy, a small section of rooms given to them in the massive Council station. Wright sighed. "At least they're not laughing anymore." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed through the station as an emergency alert sounded. "All Council members and observers report to the main chamber immediately," announced the mechanical voice of the station's system. When they arrived at the Council chamber, they found it in chaos. Aliens of all species rushed around, speaking in urgent tones. The translation system struggled to keep up with all the different voices. High Counselor Zex Talon stood at the center platform, his normally shimmering scales now dull with stress. Beside him stood Admiral Thren of the Council Defense Fleet, a tall, thin alien with 4 arms and skin that glowed faintly blue. "Order!" Zex Talon's voice boomed through the chamber. The room slowly quieted. "We face a grave situation," he continued when everyone was seated. 3 days ago, we lost contact with the Raxan system near the outer rim." Murmurs spread through the crowd. The Raxan system had 5 inhabited planets with a total population of nearly 12 billion. "At first, we believed it was a communication problem," Admiral Thren said. His voice was flat and emotionless, but his glowing skin had dimmed to almost gray. "We sent a scout ship to investigate. It sent back this footage before we lost contact with it as well." The main display in the chamber activated. It showed a peaceful-looking green planet from orbit. Suddenly, strange ships appeared from nowhere. They were unlike any design Wright had ever seen. Not solid like normal ships, but somehow blurry around the edges, as if they weren't fully there. These strange vessels fired weapons that looked like dark purple lightning. Where the lightning struck the planet, entire cities vanished. The footage ended abruptly. The chamber was completely silent for several long seconds. "Who are they?" someone finally asked. Admiral Thren's skin pulsed dimly. "They call themselves the Void Collective. We've received one message from them. They stated simply that this galaxy is now theirs, and all current life forms are to be removed." More murmurs, some turning to shouts of anger and fear. "What about your defense fleet?" asked Wright. "Surely your advanced weapons can stop them." The Admiral's skin dimmed even further. "We dispatched our 7th Fleet, 30 ships with our best weapons. They were destroyed in minutes." He activated another display showing Council warships firing brilliant beams of energy at the strange vessels. The beams passed right through the enemy ships as if they weren't there. "Their technology allows them to shift partially out of normal space," explained Zex Talon. "Our energy weapons pass through them without effect. They become solid only when they wish to attack." Captain Morris leaned forward. "And since then, 4 more systems have gone dark," replied Thren. "That's over 30 billion lives lost. They're moving inward toward the core systems. At their current speed, they'll reach Earth in approximately 6 months." Ambassador Wright felt a chill run down his spine. 6 months until humanity faced extinction. "We've called this emergency session to discuss options," continued Zex Talon. His voice sounded tired, even through the translator. "All suggestions are welcome, no matter how unusual." For the first time since humans had entered Council space, all eyes turned to the Earth delegation with something new in their gaze. "Hope." Captain Morris stood. "High Counselor, I believe we might have something that could help." "A weapon that can hit what isn't fully there?" asked Counselor Dren skeptically. "Yes," replied Morris with quiet confidence. Sometimes old and simple is exactly what you need against something new and complex. The Council War Room was larger than any military facility on Earth. Three-dimensional maps showed the spread of the Void Collective's attacks in glowing red markers across the galaxy. Each red dot represented billions of lives lost. Admiral Frank Collins stood before the gathered alien military leaders. Behind him stood Dr. Olivia Russell, Earth's top weapons scientist. Her hand shook slightly as she prepared her presentation, but her voice was steady. "The problem isn't that we lack powerful weapons," she began. "The problem is that we can't hit them." The aliens watched her with a mix of doubt and desperate hope. No one laughed now. Their phase-shifting technology lets them exist partly outside normal space. Dr. Russell continued. Energy weapons pass right through them, because energy interacts with matter in our dimension. But the void ships must remain partially in our space to attack and observe. "We know this," growled Admiral Thren. "What we don't know is how to hit something that isn't fully there." Dr. Russell nodded. "That's where human weapons might help. Our primitive kinetic weapons don't rely on energy fields or fancy technology. They're just physical objects moving very fast." She activated a holographic display, showing a simple metal rod. "This is a tungsten penetrator, similar to what we demonstrated 2 months ago. It has no electronics, no energy signature. It's just a piece of metal. But when moving at high speed, it carries enormous energy." Admiral Jason Grant, commander of Earth's Third Fleet, stepped forward. "The key is hitting them. That's where our tracking systems come in." He showed another display, this one of Earth's targeting computers. Council ships rely on energy signatures and gravity distortions to track targets. These methods don't work well against the void ships. But our old-fashioned radar and LiDAR arrays, combined with visual tracking, can detect even objects with minimal physical presence. "You're suggesting we fight space ghosts with metal sticks?" asked a four-armed alien general, his voice doubtful. "Exactly," replied Grant with a smile. "Sometimes the simplest solution is best." High Counselor Zex Talon, who had been silent during the presentation, finally spoke. "How sure are you that this will work?" "Not completely sure," admitted Dr. Russell honestly. "We've never fought these enemies before, but basic physics suggests it should work. If something has any physical presence at all, a physical object can hit it. We've already begun modifying our ships," added Admiral Collins. "The U.S. Defiant has been equipped with our most advanced rail guns and targeting systems. We want to set a trap and test our theory." The council leaders looked at each other. No one had better ideas. "What do you need from us?" asked Zex Talon. "A suitable location to draw them in," replied Grant. "Somewhere valuable enough to attract them, but not currently inhabited." The war room fell silent as the alien leaders considered this request. Finally, Admiral Thren's skin glowed a little brighter. "The Proxima binary system," he suggested. "We evacuated it 3 days ago, when our sensors detected void ships approaching. It has valuable mining operations but no civilian population now." Collins nodded. "Perfect. We'll need to move quickly." As the meeting ended, Ambassador Wright pulled Captain Morris aside. "Do you really think this will work?" Morris watched as council engineers already began studying the human weapons designs, preparing to adapt them to their own ships. "It has to," she said quietly. "If not, there won't be an Earth to go back to." Across the room, Dr. Russell was deep in conversation with alien scientists, explaining how simple rail guns worked. The aliens who once laughed at human technology now took detailed notes. "We need one chance," Admiral Grant told High Counselor Zex Talon as they stood looking at the map of void ship movements. "One shot to prove this works." The reptilian counselor's scales shifted to a deep blue color. "One shot may be all we get before more systems fall." The trap was set. The fate of the galaxy would depend on a weapon technology so basic that most species had abandoned it millennia ago. Humanity's greatest strength might be what others saw as their greatest weakness. The U.S. Defiant floated silently in the shadow of a large moon. The human warship was dark, running on minimal power to avoid detection. Inside, Captain Samantha Morris sat in the command chair, her eyes fixed on the main screen. "Status report," she whispered, though there was no need to be quiet in space. Lieutenant Paul Baker looked up from his sensor station. "All systems ready, Captain. Power at 15%, just enough to keep life support and our special sensors running." The bridge was tense. The 20 crew members barely moved as they waited. They had been hiding for 3 days, watching for any sign of the void ships. "Do you think they'll come?" asked Commander Eric Sutton. As the weapons officer, he had spent the last week preparing the ship's new railguns. Morris nodded. "They'll come. The mining stations here are too valuable to ignore." The Proxima binary system had been home to some of the richest mineral deposits in Council space. Now it was empty of people but full of unmanned equipment, perfect bait for the enemy. "Contact," Lieutenant Baker suddenly called out. 3 void vessels entering the system. Morris leaned forward. "Show me." The main screen lit up with images of 3 ships appearing at the edge of the system. They looked like dark shadows against the stars, their edges blurry and unclear as they phased in and out of normal space. "They're heading for the main mining station," reported Baker, moving in standard search pattern. "All hands to battle stations," ordered Morris calmly. "But stay dark. Let them get comfortable." Across the ship, crew members prepared for combat without turning on a single extra light. The special rail guns, massive weapons that ran the length of the ship, were charged and ready. The minutes passed slowly as they watched the void ships move through the system. Unlike Council vessels with their bright energy signatures, these enemy ships were hard to see on normal sensors. But the human tracking systems, using multiple detection methods together, kept perfect track of them. "They're approaching the main habitat ring," reported Sutton. "Looks like they're getting ready to attack it." On the screen, one of the void ships moved closer to the large ring-shaped mining station. It began to glow with purple energy, the same deadly energy they had seen destroy entire cities in the footage. "They're powering weapons," said Baker. Morris took a deep breath. Everything depended on what happened next. "Bring all systems to full power. Target the lead vessel with all rail guns." The Defiant hummed to life around them. Lights brightened and systems came online. On the weapons deck below, the massive rail guns charged with electromagnetic energy, ready to launch their simple but deadly cargo. "Loaded with hypervelocity kinetic penetrators," reported Sutton. 10 rounds per gun, ready to fire. Morris watched as the lead void ship glowed brighter. It was about to fire on the empty station. "Fire," she ordered. The ship shook as the rail guns launched their projectiles. Each one was a simple rod of tungsten with a depleted uranium core, designed to stay intact at incredible speeds. They carried no explosives, no energy fields, just mass and velocity. The enemy ships didn't react at first. Why would they? They had faced energy weapons from the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy and survived. They had no defense against something so basic that most species had stopped using it thousands of years ago. The projectiles crossed the distance in seconds, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit the lead void ship, the effect was immediate and catastrophic. The alien vessel, caught partially phased out of normal space, couldn't handle the sudden transfer of kinetic energy. The projectiles tore through its strange matter, forcing it fully back into normal space in a violent, uncontrolled way. For a moment, the ship seemed to flicker like a bad hologram. Then it imploded, collapsing in on itself before exploding outward in a brilliant flash that lit up the entire system. "Direct hit," shouted Sutton. "Enemy vessel destroyed." The bridge crew erupted in cheers. Morris allowed herself a small smile. "What about the other 2?" she asked, bringing them back to focus. Baker checked his sensors. They're running, Captain. They're retreating from the system." For the first time since they had appeared, the Void Collective was running away. "Send the signal to the Council," ordered Morris. "Tell them it worked." The humans destroyed a Void ship. The news spread through the Council station faster than light speed. Aliens of every species gathered around displays showing the battle footage from the Defiant. They watched in amazement as simple metal projectiles did what the most advanced energy weapons in the galaxy could not. The council chamber was packed when Captain Morris and her crew arrived. As they entered, something unprecedented happened. The assembled representatives, beings who had looked down on humans for years, stood up one by one. A wave of respect moved through the massive room. High Counselor Zex Talon's scales glowed bright green with excitement. "Captain Morris, please step forward." Morris walked to the center platform, aware of hundreds of alien eyes watching her. Admiral Grant and Dr. Russell followed close behind. "The Council has reviewed your successful engagement with the enemy," Zex Talon announced. "We witnessed what many thought impossible, the destruction of a void vessel." The room erupted in sounds of approval. Morris stood tall, her face calm despite the emotion she felt inside. "More importantly," continued the High Counselor, "we observed the enemy retreating. This is the first recorded instance of the Void Collective abandoning an attack." Admiral Thren stepped forward, his blue skin glowing brighter than usual. "How quickly can we implement this technology across the Council fleet?" Dr. Russell moved to answer. "The weapons themselves are relatively simple. The challenge is the targeting system." She activated a display showing the special sensors from the Defiant. "Our tracking computers use multiple methods together: radar, lidar, visual, thermal, and pattern prediction algorithms. This combination allows us to track objects even when they're partially phased out of normal space. We've prepared instruction packages for Council engineers," added Admiral Grant. "We can begin retrofitting your ships immediately." Counselor Golvek approached, his 6 eyes blinking rapidly. His skin had turned a deep blue, a color Morris had not seen before. "This is the color of apology among my people," he explained, noticing her curious look. "We mock your weapons as primitive. We were wrong." Similar sentiments came from other council members who had once laughed at human technology. Now they studied the schematics of rail guns and kinetic penetrators with intense interest. "Earth's factories are already producing ammunition for council ships," Morris told them. "We've designed versions compatible with your power systems." The next few days were a blur of activity. Human engineers spread throughout council space, working around the clock to install railguns on alien vessels. Special training programs taught council crews how to use the new weapons and targeting systems. In one corner of the massive station, Morris found Ambassador Wright watching teams of humans and aliens working together. "Not bad for primitives, huh?" she said with a small smile. Wright shook his head in wonder. "If someone had told me a month ago that the most advanced species in the galaxy would be installing what amounts to advanced cannons on their ships, I would have thought they were crazy." "Sometimes old solutions work best for new problems," Morris replied. A sudden commotion drew their attention. On a nearby display, reports showed more void ships appearing near an inhabited system. "They're attacking again," said Wright, his voice tight with worry. "Yes," Morris nodded. "But this time, we're ready for them." On the screen, they could see council vessels moving to intercept. Each had been modified with human-designed railguns. Engineers were still welding parts in place as the ships moved into defensive positions. High Counselor Zex Talon joined them, watching the display. "The first Joint Human Council Defense Force," he said quietly. "Something no one thought possible just weeks ago." "Will it be enough?" asked Wright. The High Counselor's scales shifted to a color Morris hadn't seen before, a deep gold that seemed to glow from within. "This is our color of hope," he explained. "For the first time since this enemy appeared, we have reason to believe we might survive." On the display, the council ships formed a line between the void vessels and the inhabited worlds they sought to destroy. For the first time, They had weapons that could fight back. 6 months after the first successful engagement, the combined human Council fleet gathered at the edge of Council space. Over 500 ships formed a massive wall of metal and technology. Each vessel now carried human-designed railguns alongside their traditional energy weapons. Admiral Jason Grant stood on the bridge of the flagship, the newly built U.S. Guardian. Beside him stood High Counselor Zex Talon, who had insisted on joining this final battle. Long-range sensors detect a large void fleet approaching, reported Lieutenant Baker, who had been promoted after serving on the Defiant. At least 300 ships. This is it, said Grant quietly. The main force. Intelligence gathered over the past months suggested that the Void Collective had pulled back their scattered attack groups to form one massive fleet. They had learned to fear the new weapons of the Council. All ships report ready, said Captain Morris from her position at the tactical station. After the success of the Defiant, she had been given command of the Guardian's weapon systems. Zex Talon's scales rippled with a mix of colors: worry, hope, and determination. The fate of the galaxy rests on this battle, he said to Grant. Who would have thought our salvation would come from a species we once mocked? Grant smiled slightly. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. The enemy appeared on their screens, a dark mass of shifting, blurry ships that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Before the human weapons, these vessels had seemed unstoppable. Now they were the hunted. All ships, prepare to fire on my mark, ordered Grant over the fleet-wide channel. Remember your training. The massive rail guns on each ship hummed with power as they charged. The targeting computers, designed by humans and enhanced by Council technology, locked onto the approaching enemy. Fire, said Grant. 500 ships launched their projectiles simultaneously. Thousands of kinetic penetrators streaked across space toward the Void Fleet. On the tactical display, Morris watched as the first wave hit. Dozens of enemy ships flickered and died in the opening volley. The Void Fleet, seemingly shocked by the attack, hesitated before returning fire. They're trying to adjust their phase shifting, noted Morris as she watched the sensor data. They're shifting more out of normal space to avoid the projectiles. Just as we expected, replied Grant with a grim smile. Second wave, fire. The second volley was special. The rounds contained a new invention, phase disruptors designed by Dr. Russell and Council scientists working together. When they struck the enemy ships, they forced them back into normal space completely. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, the Void Fleet was in ruins. The few surviving ships fled beyond the galactic barrier, back to wherever they had come from. 1 month later, a formal ceremony took place on Earth. For the first time, the full Council gathered on a human world. In the Great Hall of the newly built Galactic Embassy in Geneva, High Counselor Zex Talon stood before the assembled representatives. Today, we welcome humanity as full members of the Galactic Council, he announced, his scales glowing gold with hope and pride. Their unique perspective and solutions have saved countless lives across our galaxy. Ambassador Linda Peterson, who had replaced Wright after he retired, accepted the Council seal, a glowing crystal sphere that symbolized full membership. We come from a world with a troubled history, she said to the gathered aliens. Conflict and war were unfortunately common throughout our development, but those struggles gave us perspectives and solutions that proved valuable when facing this new threat. After the ceremony, Captain Morris found herself approached by Counselor Gulvek, whose 6 eyes now looked at her with respect. Your people have a saying, the alien said through his translator, about not judging books by their covers. Morris smiled. That's right. A wise saying, replied Gulvek, his skin turning a thoughtful shade of purple. Perhaps there are many more such wisdoms your species can teach us. As humans took their place among the stars, the galaxy learned an important lesson. Progress doesn't always mean abandoning the old for the new. Sometimes, the oldest solutions are exactly what's needed for the newest problems. The Council had mocked human weapons until the first shot fired.